This is an important lawsuit on behalf of the American people. There's intense public interest in the release of the Epstein files, and we want access to those records. Breaking news first, though. New Epstein files lawsuit we just filed against the Department of Justice for records the FBI or Justice Department have on Mr. Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, who was killed or committed suicide, we're led to believe, while in the custody of the Justice Department a few years ago. Americans want the Epstein client list. They want to know if there's anyone else that should be held accountable for Epstein's sexual predations. And this is why Judicial Watch has stepped up, because we're tired of waiting, and we're tired of the confusion around the records concerning Mr. Epstein. And I like Pam Bondi. I like Kash Patel. But the way these Epstein files have been handled has undermined confidence that all the records that they have are being made available. And institutionally speaking, I don't trust the Justice Department. And even if some good people now seem to be running it, I still don't trust the institution. And I talked about that in the context of other scandals and Mr. Epstein back in 2019. Let's play that video. The Justice Department can't be trusted to tie its own shoes. And one of the reasons it's not trusted is because of its record of corruption, its record of looking out the other way when there is a political figure that is favored or disfavored, political decision-making in terms of prosecutions improperly made. So the Justice Department protects Hillary Clinton, targets President Trump, and then a controversial prosecution, the subject of which has been tied to the Clintons, ends up dead. And we're all supposed to be surprised when Americans say, what's up with that? What's up with that is right. Judicial Watch requested records about the Epstein matter, mostly in just a few months ago, and we've been getting the runaround. I don't understand why it's happening, but it is frustrating. And here's my breaking news clip about it earlier this week. Hey everyone, Judicial Watch just sued for the Epstein records. We want the lists, the client lists, pretty much any document the Justice Department or the FBI have about this scandal. I know records have been turned over, but we asked for the records, and we've been getting the runaround from both the Justice Department and the FBI. So the best way to ensure all the records are turned over is to sue in federal court, and that's where we are now. We want to know what records there are, if there are any that we can't have, why not, where do they search for the records, all that basic information. And it's well past time for the American people to get the full truth about this big scandal. So not only are we asking for the client list, we want everything, practically speaking, that's in the possession of these agencies about Mr. Epstein. For instance, there's this controversy about the release of records earlier this year, as we're talking about, by the Trump administration, to their credit. But because it was kind of a public leak, there are questions about whether there were other documents that were withheld by the FBI. And because it's just a leak or a general disclosure, we don't know what's been withheld. We don't know what other records might be out there, and if there's material that's withheld even within the category of records that have been public. So, you know, releasing records from the government, unfortunately, is never easy. It's a somewhat complicated process. So when there's kind of just slapdash release of records, I like the transparency, but the accountability is lacking, because unless you're in court or pursuing the Freedom of Information Act request, you can't know for sure, or you can't be at least reasonably sure, because you never really know for sure because you're dealing with the government, that you're getting everything you're due under the law. On February 21st, 2025, all records we asked for instance, from the Justice Department, all records from Attorney General Bondi about the release of the records around that time. So that's an important aspect of this, because we want to know if there was, among other issues, cover-ups that they found out about as a result of their first release of records. But we didn't get anything. February 27th, all records related to Jeffrey Edward Epstein. Simple request, haven't gotten anything. They acknowledged receipt, nothing's happened since. Third request, we sent a record to the FBI, or FOIA request to the FBI. All records related to Epstein. Simple. So DOJ, FBI, Epstein records. And by the way, that would include records about his death. That's how I read these. And then similarly, we asked for records about FBI Director Patel's work on the Epstein files release, because we wanted to know, because there are accusations, FBI agents up in New York, or the FBI office in New York was withholding the info, and we want to know what went on there. Because if there's a cover-up, we want the accountability. And this is where Judicial Watch is second to none, because we are the nation's leading Freedom of Information Act litigator. We've asked for these records not once, not twice, but 4 different ways. We still haven't gotten an adequate response, or no response virtually. And so now we're in federal court. And the best way, and this is what I would recommend to the Trump administration, and if they're going to be releasing records and being transparent, which as I think they should at least endeavor to release the records through the FOIA process. Doesn't mean you don't widely release them. And I'm not saying don't just get them out. But you have to be aware, to the degree there's litigation or FOIA requests pending, that the way to reassure the public that there is accountability and that there's no material that's been withheld by the deep state is to be in court or use the FOIA law, because that process is put in place. So let's say we sue for the records, right? They typically give us the records. In this case, they'll give us records. Or they'll tell us, we're not giving you any records, and they'll express the reasons for the withholdings. And they'll have to justify that to the court. Or if they give us some records, they'll have to justify what they're not giving us, if that indeed is the case. And then secondly, if there's a whole group of records that's going to take time, then they negotiate or ask for court relief in order to have enough time to turn all the records over. And they always ask for more time than they reasonably need, but that's always a fight. And then sometimes you fight over where they look for the records. We don't see records from Office X. Did you look there? And they will describe the search to you. All of that is very useful, especially in a complicated issue like Epstein, where you've had multiple offices, right? Remember, he was in Florida, and then he was up in New York, and I'm sure Maine Justice was involved in some of this as well, and the FBI. So if you want to know what is in the Epstein files, I suspect this case, in the end, will be the best way to have a full understanding of what's in the files and what's being withheld and what potentially can still be found or still should be released. And this is what I love about Judicial Watch, because I know there's been all this news and there's a significant public interest in the release of the Epstein files. And the fact that we've had to sue still, even once they began releasing records, they couldn't get their act together enough to give us any other records, or even give us the records they've already released under FOIA. I don't understand it. Let's see what I said in the release about it. Simply put, the Justice Department needs to respond to public demands for transparency under law and release the Epstein files under FOIA. It's simple. They need to do that with the JFK files. They need to do that with the RFK files. They need to do that with all these categories of records that they're releasing. For example, they released to our friend Megyn Kelly, or disclosed to her, I don't know if they released it to her or showed it to her, I didn't listen to the report that carefully, records about the Tennessee shooter, the manifesto, the transgendered person who shot up the Covenant School. Terrible shooting. And we've been fighting for, frankly, years at this point in Tennessee for the records. We have a lawsuit pending. And And then we find out Megyn Kelly was given access to all the records. And in the meantime, we're being told in court we're not allowed to see the records because they're all exempt from release. Now they're telling us, oh, maybe we're going to give you the records too. So what's happening? So you can imagine it's frustrating. And then we have been in court for 3 years plus on these Crossfire hurricane records. And they were just released, not under FOIA. So this is, again, they're kind of stalling the release of the records to Judicial Watch, just a few records every month. And now they just made a massive release publicly, while concurrently telling the court they still need forever and a day to release them. It's confusing, and it's not reassuring that everything that should be released to the public is going to be released. So they're too good. This is kind of a high quality problem, right? They're being transparent in a way that is really significant and positive. So I don't want to say don't release the records. I just want to make sure that the records are released in a way that reassure the public that nothing else is being hidden. And that's the big problem they've had with the Epstein records thus far. No one would think that the initial release of the Epstein records was the way probably the administration wanted the public to think about how that process wanted the public to think or conclude that the process was appropriate. I mean, a public leak isn't all that different than a private leak. So publicly leaking the records and saying, "Oh, here's all the records," there's no way to check what's being withheld. That gets you some good points, but it doesn't get you as far as you need to. So this is an important lawsuit on behalf of the American people. There's intense public interest in the release of the Epstein files, and we want access to those records. We've asked through 4 FOIA requests for information about specifically the Epstein records, specifically the Epstein client list, and the way the records have been handled, and questions about whether there have been cover-ups, and efforts to thwart the Trump administration from getting the truth out. So we're doing our own independent investigation of deep state obstruction of the disclosure of the Epstein records, on top of just asking for the Epstein records themselves. So it's a great lawsuit. It's a massive lawsuit. And the question oftentimes in D.C. is, who can you trust? You can trust Judicial Watch. There's no one better at getting records and extracting government secrets. So I'll keep you updated. Hopefully we get more records under the law here, and to the degree I can tell you about them or keep you updated in a timely way, you can be sure I will. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.